Between the clock ticking and unforeseen issues, having a baby can create a lot of anxiety in women. In fact, infertility is one of the biggest concerns that women face. But is there hope? That's what Mary wants to know.
Hi doctors! So I just turned 41 and it's always been my dream to have children. I feel like my life would not be complete unless I got married and had children. I just always in my 20s figured, okay, I'll get married when I'm 32, I'll have my first child by 35. Certainly by 40, I'll be done having kids, and life isn't always how you plan it. But, you know, at my age, I feel like it's something that I have to do something about now. So doctors, I just really want to know, what are my best options?
Well, Mary is here looking for those answers.
So Mary, we have Dr. Millie Behara here from the Fertility Treatment Center in Scottsdale, Arizona to answer some of your questions today. We're very happy to have you.
Thank you.
And we've been teasing all show long that there is now a new way to freeze eggs that has an increased success rate. What is this all about?
There is. Eggs are the largest cell in the body and thus have a lot of water content. So our eggs are fragile. And they're very delicate structures, and thus freezing and thawing them, especially with the high water content, puts them at risk of those water crystals causing damage to the structure and to the DNA. There are two techniques to freeze and thaw these eggs. The slow technique was the older way. It took several hours to take eggs that are at room temperature down to that negative 196 degrees, at which state they can remain for an undefined number of years. Now, with the newer technology called vitrification, which essentially means turning that cell into a glass-like state. So by dehydrating all the water out of it and quickly freezing it. It's a flash freezing, takes seconds. Then you can avoid damaging those internal cell structures, and the integrity of the cell is maintained. So when you thaw that egg, we see much higher success rates, much better fertilization, and a higher pregnancy rate from those frozen eggs.
So this is definitely a boon for women, but you also have to, preserve them when the eggs are younger, correct?
Exactly. Obviously, the best time to be having this option and having these kinds of discussions is when your eggs are younger, and thus you have more of them and better quality eggs. Unfortunately, being a woman, that clock just ticks, and with time, we have lower numbers of eggs, and quality also decreases.
Is there an age that you all use to say, okay, if you're thinking about this, here's an ideal age to come see me before?
We generally say between, under the age of 37, 38 is probably your best time. For, as much as you can control life, that's the best time to ideally be doing this type of procedure.
Right, and typically less than 35, because, at 35 we consider mom's advanced maternal age, but it's just really because of, the advancement of the egg age.
Right.
And if you're taking, out of curiosity, you're taking all the water out of the egg before you flash freeze it. When you thaw that egg, how do you get it back to its native state?
That's the magic. So that is all really in the hands of the embryologist. So what happens is you take that tissue through certain stages and warm it such that the water is replaced back into the eggs. You dehydrate it like a raisin, flash freeze it, and it can stay frozen indefinitely. But when you thaw it, you want that water to be replaced slowly and gradually. And you can do that with those.
Yeah, about what happens afterwards. Is basically, you thaw the egg, and then you put it in a specialized dish, and that's where the in vitro part comes in. And basically, you also want to put together the sperm and the egg, and you can do this with a needle. And this can be either sperm from a spouse or sperm from a donor. And once you actually get fertilization of the egg, then it starts to divide. And then the embryo, depending on at what stage that you have the division of the cell, is then implanted into the uterus or the tube, depending on which procedure they're using. And this is usually done with a flexible catheter that's placed vaginally and then through the cervix up into the uterus. And again, placement is key, and that's going to help with the implantation of the now fertilized embryo. Often they have to implant multiple embryos just to get one to essentially take, and that's why there's a risk of multiple pregnancies with in vitro fertilization.
And what is that there?
These are the kinds of tools we're using to manipulate the embryos and the eggs. And you can see at the very end of this tiny straw, there's a little area where the egg would sit, or the embryo would sit, and then they're stored in straws so they can be frozen here indefinitely, and also be protected from the surrounding fluids that are protecting the egg.